In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a paper template for a coil pot. So we'll use these as our templates while we're building so that we make the exact shape that we want to. So we're first going to start with a paper template, and then we're going to make a cardboard template. I'm going to walk you through the entire process. So you're going to start with a piece of copy paper, and you're going to fold it in half, hot dog style. And now there's two decisions you have to make. How wide you want your base to be and how tall you want your coil pot to be. So generally for coil pots, for a base, we want somewhere between 3 to 4 inches. I wouldn't go any smaller than 2 inches, and I wouldn't go any bigger than 4 inches. If you go smaller than 2 inches, then your pot isn't gonna be, it's not gonna have enough of a base to be super stable, and the chances of it falling over are pretty high. So I recommend, if you want a smaller base, to stay at 2 inches. I'm gonna go for 3-inch base for mine, for the purpose of the demo. So you're gonna need a ruler. Along this fold here, you are going to line up half of what you want your base to be. So because my base I want to be 3 inches, along this fold here, I'm gonna line it up 1.5 inches, because 1.5 inches is half of 3. So on that fold, I line up 1.5 inches. I'm going, oh, there. These lines are off of this ruler. I'm gonna mark it at 3, and I'm gonna mark it at 0. I'm gonna do the same thing at the top of the paper. Along the fold, I'll mark or line up 1.5 inches on the fold, mark it at 3 and 0. I'm going to connect those little dots that I just made, the straight line. And then you're gonna fold your paper so that the lines are on the outside. Now, whenever you make this, you wanna make sure that the fold is facing the left. So the fold is facing the left. The part that's folded, the seam, is facing the left side. So now I need to decide how tall I want my coil pot to be. So if I want it as tall as this copy paper, which is 11 inches, I can just keep it exactly like this. I don't have to do anything. But if you want it to be shorter, then we have to mark it out using the ruler. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. So say I want mine to be 9.5 inches. I'm gonna mark it on both sides of the ruler. I'm gonna use my ruler to create a straight line across there. So now I know I don't go past that line up there. This is how tall I want it to be, so I'm not gonna draw my template past that line or past wherever I marked out. This down here is where we decided we wanted our base to start. So I'm going to draw a line down there because I know that's where I want my base to start. I don't want it to go past this line that I created. Now for some coil pot shapes, you can tell that the neck of the pot matches up at the same spot that the base does. Just aesthetically, that's how some, or a good bit of coil pots that you see, that's how they are. The neck of the vase matches up with the bottom. But that's just a guideline. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you have to do. So I'll show you a couple different versions of this just to show you what I'm talking about. So if I wanted the neck to match where my base is, I'm gonna make a little mark there. And then I'm gonna draw my shape. We're only drawing the profile, so you're only drawing half of the coil pot. So that could be my shape. Now, if I want my neck to come in closer, I want it to be a more narrow neck, then I could bring it in past that line. I still want my base to start down here at where I had it start for this coil base, but whenever I'm drawing, I'm now drawing it in to meet that line. You still want it to stop at this line up here because that's how tall we want it. If you wanted yours to come out further than your base, then I would make a line out here, still starting at the same spot. So this line is just a guideline. It doesn't mean that that's where your neck has to sit. It's just a guideline for you. So I'm gonna cut out all three of these so you can see the difference. So once you have the shape or the profile that you like, you're gonna take a pair of scissors and you're going to cut along that line. Make sure that your paper is still folded when you cut. So I'm gonna cut along this furthest line first to show you. I'm gonna cut across my line that determines how tall it's gonna be. And then when I open it up, I can now see what my actual coil pot shape would be. So this would be if my neck was further out than my base. And I'm gonna show you what it looks like if it was the same distance out as my base. So then that's what this would look like. And then if I wanted it to be even narrower, you could come in past that guideline for your neck, where you mark out your neck to be. And this is what my shape would look like. So it changes how your coil pot's gonna look based on how far you come in. So if I decide that this is the shape that I want my coil pot to be, I like it, I'm gonna fold it back up and I'm gonna grab a piece of cardboard. You're going to line your paper template along an edge of the cardboard just because it makes it easier for you to cut out. And then you're going to trace your shape. Then you're going to cut it out. Now, when we cut this out, we are not keeping this part. This is the positive part of the design. This over here is gonna be my negative. We want to keep the negative, we don't want the positive. So when you're cutting cardboard, sometimes you cut a little bit further in because it's hard to get your scissors around to get twisted into the right angle, but do not make those extra cuts into the negative. You can make extra cuts into the positive if you need to. You can ruin this piece. Don't ruin this piece. If you ruin your negative, you're gonna have to start over. So I'm gonna cut out along my line. So if I need to cut to make this adjustment to turn, I can cut into my positive. I can cut that part out because it's not important. And now I can get my scissors in there to cut out my shape. So now this is my negative. This is what I want to keep. My positive gets thrown away. I keep my negative. Up here at the rim, you can cut this part straight across because it's not important for the purposes of making a coil pot, because we know that's where our top's gonna be, and our top's gonna be rounded whether we have this piece on it or not. So it's gonna come out looking the same shape. And then you can cut this down to make it a little bit smaller, easier to handle for you. And now you have your negative. Just make sure that you don't alter this shape here, because this is the shape that you need to build your coil pot. You are then gonna take some masking tape and you're going to tape along the edge where you cut out your shape. The reason we do this is because clay is wet and cardboard is porous, which means it accepts water. So we're gonna be holding this up against the clay so that we get the correct shape. And the wet moisture from the clay is gonna leach into our cardboard and it's gonna make it moldy and gross, and we don't want that. So we just tape it up so that it can't accept water. So you're gonna tape it up along the whole edge, and then you're going to write your name on it And then make sure that you put this on your shelf. You will need this every day that you are building your coil pots. Make sure that it doesn't get lost. So I should write your name on it and make sure that it stays on your shelf.